Hello Year 11 and welcome to Miss G Drama. These sessions are designed to support your revision of the AQA GCSE Component 1 written exam. At our centre we study the text Noughts and Crosses. Obviously the live theatre review differs from each centre, but at our centre we went to watch The Woman in Black. So hopefully these sessions will support you along the way as you lead up to the final exam. So this particular session is going to focus on Noughts and Crosses section B, and more specifically on the design question, which is question 9.1. So what we're going to cover in this session is the specification criteria for question 9.1. We're going to look at some design vocabulary. We're looking at the conventions of contemporary epic theatre and also how you would structure a response. So you will all be very familiar that 9.1 in our case for Noughts and Crosses is asking you about a specific design that you would create for an extract. So as it says, this question will ask you to create a design in relation to Noughts and Crosses. It must fit the conventions of contemporary epic theatre. So it's worth 4 marks and it's the first question of section B. So what I've done is I've put up an example of a question that you might get. So obviously it says you are designing a setting for a performance of this extract. The setting must reflect the conventions of contemporary epic theatre used in Noughts and Crosses, and describing your design ideas for the setting. So if we look at the specification criteria for this question out of 4 marks, it goes through each band and the descriptors. So we are aiming for that excellent because we obviously want 4 marks for that. And what I've done is kind of broken down on the right hand side how you might kind of simplify that. So having excellent knowledge of how drama is created and performed, the design fits the focus of the question, excellent knowledge of design elements of the play, and always, as we always do throughout this paper, using those precise details. So I thought it might be helpful to have a look at the different design elements that could come up in the paper. So for example, in lighting design, within that I've talked about maybe special effects you might talk about, such as strobes or flickers, keywords such as intensity, being dim, bright, stark, using gobos, gels or specific lanterns, is it a profile spot, LED lights. So each of those design elements give you an example of the detail of the keywords you would need to use, because that's what the exam board are going to be looking for, your really kind of expert knowledge on design in relation to the question on your set text. So it might be worth having a look at these and seeing whether the examples on this slide are something you're familiar with and whether you are really clued up on these keywords and the understanding of them to make sure that you are kind of ready to answer the question. So for Noughts and Crosses, the focus tends to be in relation to contemporary epic theatre. So considering this, we need to think about what that means. So you must consider that it must be non-naturalistic, and you know, your ideas might be quite abstract. It's not a naturalistic play, obviously, because it's epic theatre. So it's important that your design is quite dynamic and quite abstract. The play has an episodic structure, so the scenes are quite short and snappy, and a kind of flick between different characters and perspectives. It has a political focus, so your design could link to the context of the play, whether it's Noughts, Crosses and their status in society, the kind of discriminatory behaviour. The playwright, Dominic Cook, wanted scenes to flow one into another, and that's specified. So when you're coming up with your designs, if it's say set design or lighting, you're going to want to think of ways that you can really quickly create one scene moving from one to the next. That's important as a designer. You might use projections or captions, which clearly link to contemporary epic theatre, and there's minimal setting and props. And I've said here, use that with caution, because you still need a clear design. So it's not enough if the exam board asks you about a setting or props. that you say that you're not even going to address that, you must obviously have a clear design, even if it is quite simplistic, or the actors are bringing it on, etc. So a good structure for this that I use with my students is ideal. So starting with your design idea, describing it in detail, and that's where those precise details come in. Evidence and making sure you're clearly linking it to a scene from the play and to that extract you've been given more specifically. Analysing maybe what that shows and the deeper meaning, your reasoning behind it, and always making sure you link it to contemporary epic theatre. Something to say on this is, you can use structures, and I think they're really helpful in your writing, but it doesn't mean it has to be in a particular order. Actually, you'll find that you might mix these up, and you'll find the writing style that suits you. Don't let this constrict you with your writing. So what we're going to do now is look at a model for lighting design of the hideaway. So we're imagining we've been given an extract in the paper around the hideaway and how we would design the lighting. So I will read you through the model, and I want you to think about the colour coding, so you can kind of flick back and forward if you want to have a look at how the colours correspond with the different elements of this model response. So it says, if I were designing the lighting for this scene, I would first consider the location, the hideaway. Sephi has just been kidnapped and is being kept in the hideaway as a hostage. So already I'm really linking my ideas. As a designer, I'm thinking about that location and how I can set that for the audience. So let's continue. I would want to create a level of discomfort for the audience through my use of lighting because of the dark nature of the scene. Firstly, my hideaway would be set underground because the Noughts have to keep a low profile, so would use a dim general wash with a low intensity. To add to this, I would use a gobo in a spotlight lantern with square shapes in the stencil to create a grid on the stage to show they are beneath the ground. So what you'll notice about my description in blue is that I'm using a number of lighting specific key terminology, whether it's that I've put the gobo in there and the kind of dim general wash, so the intensities in there. I'm trying to embed those key words. And I've made a lighting choice to kind of show where my hideaway would be based. So now we're going to go on to some kind of linking now to contemporary epic theatre. So these simplistic lighting choices will mean that the scene can be created on stage very seamlessly. And this is important since Cook, the playwright, suggested that scenes should flow one into another in order to fit the style of contemporary epic theatre. So I've linked my idea to contemporary epic theatre because we know a gobo is a very quick way to create a location on stage. Now I've got some more description. Sephi will be placed centre stage and a profile spot would light her with a red gel inside at high intensity to show the intimate danger she faces, since this colour has connotations of danger. This is quite a symbolic choice, which makes this non-naturalistic. So again, I'm explaining why I'm making that choice and how it links to the non-naturalistic style. When any characters enter or exit the scene, strobe lights will flash to show the dingy nature of the location with faulty electrics and the fact that noughts and crosses would not have the resources needed to hold someone hostage. So every lighting choice that is made in the design ideas have clear links to contemporary epic theatre, but I also consistently try and explain what that shows and how that might link to the context of the characters. So now it's your go. I've given 2 practice questions below. One is on lighting and one is on a costume design for Jude. And hopefully through the quick kind of revision session that we've gone through, you will find it easier to have a go at writing your own response. And one top tip I'm going to give is that the paper is extremely long, and so when you're writing your responses, I think it is important to use a pen that's going to glide well on the page. And I've given an example of one that you could use there, and this is not an ad, it's just a pen that I've seen students use and have found really good to kind of write without having to worry about kind of their arm aching as much. Just a very small tip to end the video. Hopefully this has been helpful, and I'll see you in our next session.